Hello guys, and welcome back to Welder here. Anyway, basically what I'm showing you guys now is the revamped reference, and what I've done is I've actually cut them down quite a bit. I made them a little bit longer, and the reason I did is because my original idea was to take and actually bury a servo behind here and make that an access panel that after certain other things I'm not going to do. I'm simply going to put a servo in here that's actually going to sit right in here. Two arms in yours. It's actually going to pull it in and out right in here. And this needs to be sent off. I'll cut it off. Use this razor saw and I'll glue this piece in. I'll just drill that. I'm not too worried about that. But over that, a lot of guys ask me if they drop, and yes they do. They drop considerably, and they swing up like they're supposed to. This one is just sitting in here, but they do actually, again, a little over, again, what I was doing, this piece just goes in there. That's just how much I cut down long, and I just reuse this piece, put it in here, glue it into place. Now, the doors do drop, and if you look at the other video, I showed how I made the hinges out of wood on this, but I didn't go through a lot of the specifics. A lot of I'm dropping everything today. Anyway, I will simply cap that off and glue that into place. But the doors do actually drop quite a bit. And basically the lower hinge on this is a floating type hinge. That's going to fall off again. But it does actually show you just how much it actually does drop. And a lot of guys have wondered about this. Basically, if you look inside, you can't really see it in here. The hinge actually, the lower one, actually does float. The top one is actually in there. And then you really can't see in there too much. But right there is where the hinge, the point will go. But if you look in here, they do drop. And when they do retract up, they do level themselves out back to where they got to go. And it's just what it is. It's like I say, before you glass all these parts, if you put these in, just feel free to contact me. I'll show you what I kind of did. I'll make a kind of half-ass drawing to show you what I've done and to make these actually work. But when they are open, they're impressive. When they're open and you look at it, it just adds, to me, it adds quite a bit to the plane. But they don't need to be as long as I made them. I made them long, and I actually went in between the frame here and that frame right there. Then I sheeted back that and made that. There's no strength compromisation, and it won't interfere with the exhaust tube or any of that stuff in there. This is just the way they are. And building them that way, they look a lot better. They're actually done. And again, I'll show you how I did it. And what I did is I took a 48 scale. If I quit knocking everything down, I'll be doing good. I took a model, and I'm using just parts for references. This is where I get all my ideas. The one thing I didn't do is go as far down in here on that. And the reason I didn't is because, and I still actually could, if I really wanted to go down and actually get them exactly the right size. But what I did do is I took this measurement right here, which is, again, if I can find my ruler, I'll be doing great. Anyway, it comes up to 16 millimeters from here to here. You times that by 12, and you're going to have this length. And that's how I get it. All of my deal, it comes up to 192. The actual height would be a 180 on here, and mine aren't. But I'm not gonna get too overboard crazy about that, because to me, having a little bit more strength under there is good enough. And I just don't want to, I don't want a great big gaping hole in the fuselage. So this is good. This is something that the plane does not need. I want to add, the wing is so big that these are just more for looks, but I'm definitely sure that it will actually slow this airplane completely down, just like the real one. And again, they do drop considerably. If you look in there, it's a drop in that. And I show how I made the hinge on it in this, and they do actually retract back to where they need to be. And when you look at them, they look pretty good to me. So once those are all glassed in and done, you won't notice it. I'm going to paint them zinc chromate in there, and I'm just going to call that good. I'm not going to go through all the details in that. It's just, we're going to have an airplane that's way entirely too heavy. And again, working the latch over, guys, it does not move. And what I've done is I've completely gone in there and buried it in some epoxy in there. And with this here, this cord will be tied to another deal, but it works like a deal like this. And that is the latch. So, and it could be reached from inside. Should anything go crazy on it, you can reach it right through the tunnel and right through in here. You can see it. I mean, but you won't see it through the cockpit. So there's a lot of little things I am doing. Again, got a lot of doctoring up to do around here with the Dremel, and there's a lot of other things to build and getting on this thing. Plus I'm going to start sheeting these things, getting them done so I can just start going. Detailing is going to take me months. So, I mean, it's not something that happens within a week or two. It takes a lot of time to put in over 20,000 rivets and screws and everything else that's going. And another thing I want to show you, some guys asked me about my wingtip here, and I'm going to show you guys something that I saw that is kind of why I did mine that way. This is what I use for a reference on that, and that tip does not go all the way up over there. So, and I think I got the right one for this side. When you do get them in, they should look, yeah, that's the right one. So anyway, guys, when you do get them in there, this is the way it's supposed to be. And they do kind of roll around. I think this is, yeah, I think this is actually the other side, which is fine. But once these go in, they'll go, and they'll, it actually does go with everything else that's in here. There's a lot of sanding, little touch-ups and little things, little dents and things like that I got to clean up. But this is the way they roll. And with everything else, anyway, guys, that's where I got my reference for the tail on that. And it really actually pays to get a hold of something like that in order to go out there and start double checking things here and there and getting things to kind of coincide with the madness you're creating. Because it's just this is where things are starting to get to where they're real. Once this thing is primered, it'll be good. Now if you guys are going with going to just fly this airplane, which a lot of you will, my build is going to slow down tremendously at this point. And that's because I've got a lot of things going on. Now, a few guys have asked me about what I'm using for my reference point. And yes, I will be doing some skim coating and making all of these lines disappear. These need to be blocked. And when they're done, they'll be real close. But when it's primered, that's when I'll come in and I'll start doing the little things like this little spot right here and just little things. And just letting things cure out and getting in and actually doing some last minute modifications and this and that is where it really needs to be. And my landing gear is going to be a spectacle. One thing that I want to emphasize is that I'm not gonna say where it's been done yet, but when it does come in, my landing gear is going to be pretty epic. I just saw it the other day and oh my god, it's unbelievable. And it does rotate in the nose. So the scale doors and a lot of things that are in this are going to be done, and we're only going to have to modify this area right here. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up where the door actually ends up right in here, but the scale door, once it sits down in this, it only comes out about that much from what originally is there. And I'm going to be getting the lights, and that will drop down right in here, and we'll be going with again, I'll be using iFlyAtili's stuff, and he's iFlyAtili's.com. His parts are beautiful. The things that get in are really good. And one thing that a viewer did mention that I am totally going to absolutely 100% concur with, and this and that, is servos. I'm using programmable high voltage, super speed, very fast servos. But I want to make it very abundantly clear that if you guys are going to do automated pilots and stuff like this guy is, you want to make sure you're using a digital servo in there. And this is something, thank you Chris for bringing that up, because if you don't want to mix your servos. You don't want analogs. If you're going to go digital all the way through it, no matter what they are. Like landing gear doors, digital servos. If you're using any other thing that's like that, you want to make sure you're getting that or having a voltage step down to get them. Now this guy here has a digital servo, and he wasn't cheap, but he's cool looking, and I like him. I like the way he looks, and really digging the look on this, even though he's full of cotton. He's rotten cotton. We'll just call him rotten cotton. You like that? But anyway, and I'm not worried about the flight helmet, guys. I ain't really. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I like the idea that, you know, maybe a little bit of newer with the old. But as you can see, I think he likes his airplane. But anyway, once it gets in there and we house all that, this cockpit will sit up about like this, and it's going to be pretty neat. So anyway, moving right along. I mean, I got that side glued in, getting ready to cut this, so I will cut this back a little bit, and then when that's all done, then I'll go up there and get this, and then we'll start making the recess for that particular servo, run a splitter to it, and we'll get them programmed. In case you guys are wondering, yes, I do have a programmer for these servos. Run just this guy here. It does have a port in right there to where you can kind of go in and double check everything that's going on. And it does have a test mode. And they're not much. They're only about $10, but they're worth having. Then you can match all your servos up. You can do 2 servos, and you can basically go up there. You can check the speed on them, everything else you want to do, and they're very easy to work. You can take this to the field with you and everything else you're doing. So yes, I do possess a lot of that stuff, and yes, I do have rigger tools. I've only shown so far mostly this and some sandpaper and a lot of things, and of course a cordless drill, which is right there. But anyway, the results are pretty amazing once you guys get to this point, and this is where a lot of your finish work is going to come in, and then you're going to be blocking and sanding this down. And on this 3rd coat of epoxy, guys, I put it on there, and the reason I didn't want to see any bolts or anything like this, like that, and I was going to do it, but there comes a time when you gotta kind of loosen your deal. It's worth it to buy a $30 latch and, you know, set it up and clean up your whole thing, because it won't move. It's not going to do anything crazy. And then you can get your final stuff done as you're doing it, and just kind of whatever. Now I will block this off, and a lot of guys have asked me about that. And yes, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a skim coat on here, and then I will do that with this before I prime it. And these areas can be a little tedious to get in, but what I'm looking to do is get this back just enough to where this looks like a panel line. And I'm using 1/64th, you know, chart pad tape, because on all of the F86s I've seen in real life, the panel lines are not really overly visible. This one, once it's painted, it'll look real cool, but they actually use a stuff called Aerosmooth on all these jets, and they also micro-shaved a lot of the rivets, so you didn't see a lot of the things in a lot of the over amount of details in a lot of things. So you got to kind of go and look at a real one, or get some pictures of one where you can actually zoom in on it and get it. And that's just kind of the consensus of building an airplane like this, because you want to be able to pick out things you do and don't want. And too much is too much, not enough is not enough. And just finding that balance is pretty amazing. As far as the gun ports, guys, I'm finding that having the model has been detrimental to this, because this whole piece, once this is in, this was actually a hood, and getting this particular line, which will be right around in here, it comes straight up around, but in order to get that, this is one piece that actually has to go up from right here and across, and then there's a lot of things. So making this line disappear is not an issue, and it's just simple, very, very light coats in there, and blocking this out so this all smooths out to being one thing. And it's not a lot of weight, so nothing to really worry about. But we got a lot of tweaking, a lot of things to do in here, and getting this thing just kind of dialed in. But as far as that, you're looking at the details coming out, and it's one of the biggest things. So what I'm doing is I'm going through a lot of tape, a lot of material, and trying to get things done on this, so that when I do prime it, it's just going to be a real quick and easy sanding, and I'm not going to be wanting to go through for, you know, $300 worth of primer. And that's just exactly why I'm doing all this, because primer gets expensive, especially if you're doing 2Ks and all this and that. And it's like I said, this jet, I'm building it to represent Mears, and you know, we're going to go Fierce Mears next year, and we're going to start seeing more of these jets getting out into the Top Gun, and a lot of top builders actually getting back into wood builds. And that's the one thing that I want to really take a minute and just really talk about here, is the fact is we just don't have a lot of builders out in this country anymore. And ARFs have taken over, fiberglass fuselages have kind of taken over a lot. And I'm not against them. You know, I'm really not against fiberglass and this and that. I think they're great. But I think one of the biggest things is that this airplane will have its own personality from the builder. And once you get to looking at little things, these damn things are just, once you build it yourself, there's just no substitute for, you know, there's just no substitute. I mean, once you built and put bulkheads in a fiberglass fuselage, you've done just that. You know, we're taking 6 months to do. You're saving a lot of time doing fiberglass, but this is a stronger airframe. And it's just, it's actually very strong. And those of us that are builders out there might even argue the point, you know, that, yeah, they're heavy. Yes, it might be a slug in here. But you know what? I'm not interested in doing 300 miles an hour with this airplane. I'm interested in some aerobatics. I'm interested in making this thing look like it's real as possible, and scale. I'm not gonna show up, you know, with a fifth scale that's not big enough. And I love the development and I love the build. So it's one of these things where this is just a shoe-in for what is really truly amazing. And so I will do another video when we're getting ready to start glassing, and there's a few things I'll show the air brakes a little bit more when I get ready to glass the insides of them and get those pretty much done to where we can kind of close them up and start working this out, because we've got a lot of work to do and got a lot of sanding work to do, and yeah, it's just fun. Plus I need to put the wing on and get that fillet made. Got a long ways to go, but it's really just a couple days and a little bit of sweat equity built into it, and it'll be fine. But until then, I'll see you guys in the funny papers.